Imagine hanging off a balloon, thousands of feet in the air, waiting for the signal to jump. Suddenly, the world pauses, time stops, and the blue sky peels away. What he saw was so profound, even his therapist had no words for it. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave, my co-host. Today I have 13 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. Let's get to it. Case file number 3402, written by Lolita Duciel, At the Ceiling of the World. I'm a skydiver, and I love jumping from air balloons. That day this happened, I climbed out of the basket and was hanging for 30 seconds to the side, waiting on the pilot's permission to jump, watching the balloon and the sky. Keep in mind that in these moments we are full of adrenaline, hyper-focused and very anxious. Obviously, we must be 100% sober to do this, no medication or drugs. As I was waiting, something happened during some seconds. Time stopped, and I clearly saw with my eyes a massive grid pattern in the sky. It was white and green, very bright, infinite, and felt like a ceiling. I was so confused. I remember my mind going blank, and I got this awful feeling of impending doom. People were not moving, and it was like we paused a movie. I disassociated from the moment. And then it's instantly gone. The feeling too. I'd say 3 seconds max. I jumped, it was very fun, and I didn't die. No grid pattern in the sky on camera, and I looked completely normal in the videos, like it didn't happen. But the vision was so strong, I was disturbed for weeks. I even told my therapist everything, and she looked at me like I was insane. She never heard of anything like that. I think the grid and people who are able to perceive it, they're seeing the fundamental architecture of reality. And by that I mean, I think that reality is split into clusters of servers, and what you're seeing isn't like the edge of the observable universe or anything like that. It's just, if you cross the grid, as you're seeing it, you'd move into a different cluster of servers that are responsible for that local geographic area. And I think this connects with the glitch where the sun blinks out of existence. It's just that local cluster, probably a small segment of it, failed and has to be replaced by a different server rack, or whatever they call them in the real world. Case file number 3403, written by 123 Complete Fail. The Lawyer's Secret Room. I had a best friend in high school who lived in this big, beautiful mansion. It had 5 bedrooms, a huge maze of a basement, a greenhouse, etc. Before her dad bought the place, a lawyer lived there who had been arrested for stealing lots of money and bad checks and the like. Dude was paranoid, apparently, because there were security systems all over the house and a secret room that you had to get to through a door in the closet. Anyway, he died and no one really ever found the money, according to the story that the real estate man told her family. Fast forward to me spending the night at her place. We were freshmen in high school and had just gotten home from homecoming. Her younger brother had his friend over, and they were both being immature, stealing our shoes and throwing footballs at us all night. She was sleeping in her bed, and I was sleeping on an air mattress, with my head next to a bookcase, holding all sorts of intricate glassware and pretty things that she liked to collect. It was probably about 4 a.m. when this happened. Out of nowhere, there was a huge crash next to my head. I freaked out, woke up immediately, because I thought maybe her brother had played a trick on us and threw something, shattering all the glassware. Importantly, everyone else in the house heard it too, including her parents sleeping downstairs. That's how loud it was. But when I turned around, expecting to see glass shards and broken toys everywhere, there was nothing to be found. In fact, her brother and his friend had been sound asleep as well. We investigated the whole house, and nothing was out of place. Ever since then, we've always been kind of scared of the place. I house-sitted for them once, by myself, and I was always aware of some sort of presence that felt like it was watching me. Sometimes I wonder, is that lawyer still looking for his money? Case file number 3404, written by Clementine Salad. half the size of a grain of rice. 4 years ago, when I turned 21, my grandma took me to a jeweler. It has become a tradition for my grandma to take me to jewelry for big birthdays such as my 18th and 21st. On my 18th birthday, my sister and I received gold and diamond rings, which were purchased for us using money my great-grandma had left aside for us when she passed away in 2006. So on that day, for my 21st birthday, I chose the most beautiful gold ring with an emerald gemstone in the middle. It was gorgeous, and I was thrilled, and my grandma was happy too. The ring felt really special to me. I also, at that time, had a couple other rings from my grandma, all inherited from maternal family members. Well, fast forward a couple weeks later, and I've gone on a night out with some friends. At this time, I was at university and living away from home, so I was out a lot, and I remember my grandma telling me to be careful with the ring, which I brushed off. I'd been wearing rings for a while now with no incident. I was also young and naive. The next morning, I woke up deathly hungover, but got on with my day. It wasn't until a few hours later I noticed the beautiful green emerald gemstone was missing out of my ring, gone. I was absolutely devastated. I looked everywhere I could, trying to see if I could find it, but with no luck. It was also a rather small gemstone too, so being able to find it was highly unlikely. I think a few days had passed. I couldn't get myself up to work up the courage to tell my grandma the gemstone had gone missing. I just knew she'd be devastated and probably a bit angry too, so I just got on with my days as usual, which included tidying up my room, changing my bedding, vacuuming, etc. I was very good at keeping my room clean as a student, and having a really small room probably helped too. Then, this is when it gets weird. One evening, I'm sitting on my bed, FaceTiming with my boyfriend on my iPad, and just mindlessly chatting. As I'm talking to my partner, I reach out onto the bed in front of me, because I can see what was probably a piece of dust or some chocolate I'd been eating, but all of a sudden, I notice as I pick this thing up, that it is in fact the emerald gemstone I'd lost a few days previously, laying there on my bed on the bedding I'd just put on after cleaning my room from top to bottom. I was absolutely baffled. I genuinely could not believe it. How had this gemstone, which was literally half the size of a grain of rice, now on my bed on top of the bedding I'd just put on after cleaning my room from top to bottom? Impossible is the only fitting word. Case file number 3405, written by Epsi Mame. It never leaves the bathroom. My girlfriend lives with me in an apartment complex that's not too old. I think it was built in the 50s or 60s, so I wouldn't think of this as a haunted place or anything like that. For context, me and my girlfriend are not known for pulling pranks on each other. That's not something we do, and I know for a fact that none of us could keep a straight face if we actually were pulling a prank. My girlfriend has this scrubbed body butter that she smears on her body after showering. It's the size of a soap bar. It's oval, wrapped in paper, and put in a small metal box. 2 days ago, the scrubber was taken out of the box, out of the paper covering it, and was just laying on the bathroom sink. My girlfriend asked me if I took it out, but I don't ever touch the thing, so I said no. She said that she didn't take it out either. I just thought to myself that she had forgotten that she used it and just didn't put it away, and I didn't think more about it. This morning, the metal box containing the paper and the scrubber was in our bedroom. I don't know exactly where, because she pointed it out and brought it to the bathroom again. It's very weird, because she wouldn't even take it out of the bathroom in the first place. She only uses it in the bathroom and puts it away in the bathroom when she's done with it. She wouldn't take it anywhere else. She doesn't even take it with her to other places if we're traveling or showering at the gym, for example. It never goes out of the bathroom. With that said, last night, before bed, it was in the bathroom, so it moved overnight. The only thing I can think of as a reasonable explanation is if one of us sleepwalked last night. As a kid, I did walk in my sleep, but now I'm 25 and the last time I did sleepwalk, I was probably 9 or 10, so that is very unlikely. Case file number 3406, written by J&M RKTX. Warrantied Wonders. First was a Christmas wreath container. You know, the red and clear Rubbermaid kind you can find at almost any box store around the holidays? We purchased one about 5 years ago, and around year 3 of ownership, the little clips and tabs that hold it closed snapped off. 2 of them did, in fact. We used tape to hold it together, and put our wreath in it after Christmas 2023. The same season we took advantage of post-holiday sales and purchased a second one, identical, at a discount, and put it in the attic along with the previous broken one that was already housing the wreath we took down. For whatever reason, we just didn't swap the wreath to the new one just yet. We just added the new one empty to the attic. Fast forward to the holiday season 2024. I go up to the attic to pull down the holiday decor and get to the empty and new wreath container and go ahead and pass it down to my wife. I then find the old and broken wreath container with the wreath in it and pass that one down as well. Then I hear my wife ask, "Wait, where did this one break again?" I came down the attic ladder to see what she was talking about and realized she was holding the wreath container with the wreath inside and all the clips and tabs perfectly intact. The container was mysteriously good as new, and the actual new one was obviously still good to go, not even put into use yet. To this day, we are both still dumbfounded about how this happened. We continue to use the old one and haven't started to use the new one yet because the old one still works and is fixed. The second time something like this happened was pretty recently, over the summer. I had purchased an Owala Free Sip tumbler, 40 ounce in black. After a few days of use, I noticed that the handle on it was coming loose. I didn't want to return a used tumbler to the store, so I decided to try out Owala's warranty claim and see how that went. I sent a short video of the handle wobbly on the tumbler, and they emailed back asking for a longer video that showed it loose. So, I had my wife video from the cell phone while I grabbed the tumbler by its handle and shook it pretty fast. You can clearly see the wobble in the video, and even hear it clicking with each change in direction. Owala honored the warranty claim and sent a voucher for the amount spent on the cup to reorder another one. I was turned off by the quality, so I told my wife she could use a credit to order herself one if she wanted, which she did. I told her I'd just use that wobbly cup around the house, no big deal. About a week later, my wife randomly asked me, "Hey, how did you fix your handle?" "What do you mean? I didn't." "But I washed it today and it's fixed." I went to check the dish drying rack in the kitchen, and sure enough, the tumbler now has a perfectly tight and firm handle, zero wobble, nothing loose. There are no exposed screws to tighten, and no way to actually fix that as it is spot welded at the factory from what I understand. Once again, we are both perplexed as to how this happened, especially since this time we actually have a video of this cup broken. The only odd similarity is that all these items were purchased from our local Target. Not that this has anything to do with the end result, but it's interesting to me that the 2 items this happened to are products we purchased from the same store. Case file number 3407, written by Gaijin Sama, The Parka Phantom. I was about 17 or 18 over the course of a couple weeks. One day I found a 12-inch tall Eskimo doll in my bedroom. It was not ancient, but it was old looking. It had a real fur parka and was made from molded plastic. The paint job was almost perfect. Someone had taken care of this doll. There was nothing creepy about the doll's looks. It looked fairly normal. Thinking it was my younger sister's doll, she's 6 years younger than me, I put it in her room and forgot about it. The next day I found it in my room again, right inside my bedroom door. Like most teens, I keep my bedroom door closed, and the door was still closed when I found it. Still, I didn't get too freaked out. I assumed my sister was messing with me, or that it wasn't hers. So I put it in my brother's room. He's 8 years younger than me, and it wasn't abnormal for one of his toys to be an Eskimo doll. A day or two later, it was in my room again, and I knew someone was messing with me. So I took the doll and just chucked it into my sister's room, into a huge pile of toys where I assumed it would go unnoticed. A day or two after that, while alone in the house playing computer games in the entertainment room, I turned around to find the doll laying on the floor behind me. I went out into the house, but I was still alone. I took the doll and threw it in the trash. That night, when I went to bed, it was in my room again. By now I figured that someone was either really screwing with me, which seemed unlikely, or the doll was possessed and wasn't going to leave me alone, which was even more unlikely. Either way, I figured I'd defuse the situation by just leaving the damn doll in my room. I put it on the couch in my room and left it there, and it stayed there for a week or so. No big deal, nothing happened. One night I had a friend sleep over, and he was going to sleep on the couch in my room. When he came in, he took all the stuff on my couch and piled it into a corner so he could set up his crap. While I was going through the stuff on the floor to put it away, I noticed the doll was missing. I asked my friend where he'd put it, and he asked me, "What doll?" I scoured my room for that thing, but it was finally gone. I never saw it again. But I swear, for months I thought it was going to jump at my face every time I opened my sock drawer. Years later I asked my brother and sister about it, and they said they remembered the doll, but seemed genuinely surprised by my story. I honestly believe they had nothing to do with it. Case file number 3408, written by Statusink. The name starts with E. A few years back, I was at a friend's house messing around. There was a kid there who just got back from a meditation retreat of some sort. I had only met him once before and just assumed he was a weird spiritual hippie type. He was talking, saying something about his ghosts and spirit experiences. I was, and still am, a skeptic of these types of stories, so I asked him, "Why can you see them and not me?" He asked if I wanted to, and knowing ghosts aren't real, I said, "Sure." Completely serious, he waved smoke around me and said, "It might not be tonight or tomorrow, but in the near future, you'll have an experience." I know, I smelt the bullcrap too. No more than an hour later, after everyone had forgotten about it and the subject was completely changed, out of nowhere he said, "Did someone's grandma just die?" Mine had died about 2 weeks earlier, and I didn't tell any of the friends that were at the house. I told him mine did, to which very calmly he replied, "Well, she's with us now. Did her name start with E? Her name was Ella. And she's with an animal. It's black. She had a black poodle." I had seen these tricks before on TV with mediums and was still unimpressed. I said, "Okay, if you're talking to her or seeing her, what does the dog's name start with?" Without blinking, he said, "B." The dog's name was Bo. Still skeptical. The very next day, I had gone home from school and laid out on my couch in the living room with my dog. There was a stack of folded clothes on the table, blocking my view of the TV. I was a real jerk and didn't care that my mom had folded them that morning, and just knocked the whole pile on the ground. I was a member of the local volunteer fire department, and sometime after, we got a call for a fire alarm. I rushed to the station, and before we even got a truck out, it was confirmed to be a false alarm. 15 minutes later, I got home and laid back on the couch. The clothes were perfectly folded, back on the table. I called my mom, who was still at work, and asked if she happened to stop home. She said no. Being alone in my house and scared, I called for my dog and couldn't find him. He would always be waiting for anyone to come home at the front door and jump on us, and now he wasn't anywhere to be found. I searched the whole house and eventually found him in the corner of my unfinished basement, literally shaking in the corner like some Blair Witch crap. Oddly, I still don't believe in ghosts or anything supernatural, and just assume everything has a reasonable explanation. And reading other people's ghost stories, I think they are either made up or the person isn't seeing clearly. But with all that said, I really can't explain this, especially the fear in my dog. Case file number 3409, written by I Love My Hidden Self, The Midnight Tower. When my son was 2 years old, he loved to play with those giant Legos, Duplo, in the living room on our hardwood floor. They made a distinct sound when they fell on the floor as he played. One night, around 10 p.m., after he'd been asleep for a couple hours, my ex-husband and I had just turned off the lamp to go to sleep when we heard what sounded like my son playing with his Duplos on the hardwood floor right outside our closed door. We were both surprised at the nerve of this kid, thinking it was okay to be awake, let alone playing with his toys right outside our bedroom door. However, we're tired and don't want to deal with it, so my husband just says loudly, "Go to bed!" But the playing continues, as if his tower of Duplos just tumbled over. So my husband stands up and opens the door quickly and says, "I said, go to..." But there was nothing. Our bedroom was at the end of a long hallway, and we could see my son's closed bedroom door at the other end. We go into our son's room, and he's fast asleep. We search the house looking for I don't know what. Even opened cabinets hoping to find raccoons or something, but nothing. My ex was a very narrow-minded person concerning supernatural phenomena. He simply believed it didn't exist. We ended our search of the house in the attic, and with him staring into the distance, admitting there is no rational explanation for what we just heard. He never spoke of it afterwards, though. So, to me, the most baffling thing in reality is not glitches or paranormal stories, UFOs, all that. It's when something very odd happens to someone, and they become even more skeptical or simply shut down completely. Now, I try not to be too judgmental, and I have no judgment at all for people who are just skeptical. I mean, I kinda am too, at least, especially before I started narrating all these stories or reading them on my own. I didn't always believe as strongly as I do now in simulation theory and ghosts and all that. Now I do, but my point is, if something happens to you specifically, to be skeptical then, well, you can at least ask questions. It's more if you're just shut down entirely, or you completely dismiss you don't have any open mind at all towards things that we can't yet explain. It doesn't even mean it's magic or anything like that. It's just something we can't explain yet happened to you. You know, don't ignore that. Don't act like it didn't happen. You know what I mean? That just confuses me. But I guess I think it is a defense mechanism. Something you don't know you can't control might hurt you or change your life in a way you don't like, so people just shut down at that. Case file number 3410, written by SuddenClick6881. The architecture is visible. I've seen grids twice, unexpectedly. Once waiting in traffic for a long light to change. All of a sudden, the sky above the traffic light had grid lines. The lines extended as far as I could see. Lasted about 4 seconds. I tried to see if any other drivers acknowledged what had just occurred. None did that I could tell, but maybe they were trying to process what I saw. The light changed right after. The other time was at night. After the first experience, I started to pay attention to the sky as much as possible. One night, a rapid blinking red light drone was just going through the area. For about 1 to 2 seconds, I would see it shoot out a burst of energy that was white. That light quickly dimmed, but traveled along a faint green grid line. Then I would lose sight of the grid line and white burst, but after 10 seconds, it would do it again. My 15-year-old child was outside with me as we had our astro binoculars out. He saw it twice too. The second occasion happened about 5 to 6 times. Tried to get pictures, but it just wouldn't pick up right. My kid, to this day, will still not deviate from what he saw. He doesn't know what to call it, but he definitely saw it. One last time, I'm not sure how to classify, so I want to leave this one separate. I was not alone, but the other person wasn't looking at the sky. We went up over the mountain to a dark sky park to watch the sky and get some great moon pictures. I just had my binoculars up, but my glasses off my face, as I had adjusted the binoculars to me with no glasses. I was just pulling them down when I saw 5 green lines flash across the sky. Looked like straight, green power lines. I quickly threw on my glasses on my other hand, and it was gone. But again, stretched far out. This time it was only horizontal lines. The first occasion was horizontal and vertical lines. The second occasion with the kid was horizontal only. In the end, they just didn't travel all the way up to the sky like I've seen before. Case file number 3411, written by Lutzlanger96. Gameboy Red and Blue. When I was about 6 or 7, we moved to this house in Chino, and I remember my family and I were extremely happy because we were relatively poor and they lived in crappy apartments their entire lives. And this place had 3 bedrooms and a pool. It was heaven. Being the oldest, I got to pick and have my own room, and there was this room at the front of the house that obviously had a girl living in it before me. Pink flower curtains, pink dresser, white and pink canopy bed, etc. This was before my hot topic punk rock goth phase. Anyways, one night my 2 cousins came for a sleepover. I was 6 or 7, my cousins 9 and 6, and my little sister was 5. The mattress we ordered for my room hadn't arrived yet, so we slept on the floor at the front of the bed, between the bed and the window. We were talking and playing Pokemon on our Gameboy colors, and I look over to my older cousin, who's laying down on my right, and I see this red-covered hand reach up and out from the bottom of the bed, and I thought she was messing with me, so I was about to scream at her to cut it out, and I looked down and see that both of her hands were on her Gameboy, and I screamed. I screamed so loud and so hard, I started hyperventilating and was frozen in my spot, almost vibrating in the air. Then my cousins and sisters turned to see what I was screaming at, and they shrieked and screamed and cried, and my older cousin picked me up and dragged me out of there. Our parents were drunk, barbecuing in the backyard, and didn't believe us. We slept in the living room. As the months went by, more weird things started happening, like things would go missing or randomly fall off the counter, and there were more than a couple occasions where I would be sitting and see a shape like my sister walking around in my peripherals, but when I look, no one's there, and she's either asleep or not even home. Eventually, my dad was the only one who believed me because he said spirits used to follow him around too when he grew up in Vietnam, and it broke my mom's heart, but we got the hell out of there after a year. Case file number 3412, written by the Mad Vet Barber. Held by the air. I was in a house doing a private tattoo for a customer one night when we both heard some movement happening outside the door to the room we were in, and I made a comment about it being really late for his 4 and 9-year-old to be awake, moving around. This gave him pause, and he asked me to stop for a minute and got up and opened the door. He stared into the hallway with this look on his face for a minute or two, and then said, "Man, you gotta see this crap." For context, I slowly got up, took off my gloves, rested my machine on some paper towels, and made my way to the door. And then I had enough time to step away from the door and grab my flip phone. This was a while back, and saw a broom standing up in the doorway by itself. Not only that, but this thing was standing at almost an angle. I took a quick picture and moved to the door to see what the trick was that was causing this event to happen, but there was no one there and nothing holding this thing. I gently grabbed the broom from the air and felt like I was pulling it away from someone or some unseen thing, and that was it. Whatever it was, it gave it to me. So just a quick note on the broom thing. It is possible to balance because of how the bristles act when they come into contact with surfaces. You can balance a broom, basically just with the friction of the bristles on the floor, and it looks pretty cool, almost spooky. What's mysterious about the story is just who put it there. Wasn't the children, right? That would be weird. I guess it's possible, but that is a bigger mystery than how it was balanced. Yeah. It's a pretty neat trick you can do if you want to impress someone or scare them. Case file number 3413, written by Glittering Reach 1314. The Color of Memory. Many years ago, when I was really into baking, my dad bought me a stand mixer for my birthday. Recently, I went to my parents' place to ask my mom if I could take that stand mixer home, as I wanted to bake some cookies. I asked her, "Mom, do you remember the stand mixer Dad bought? Can I take it home?" She responded, "Oh, the red one? Sure, let me go grab it for you." We dug it out of the basement and brought the bin with the mixer and a blender upstairs. When we opened the bin, we suddenly realized the mixer was white, even though it was the same brand. We were so confused and didn't understand why it was suddenly white when the one my dad bought was red. I quickly ran upstairs and asked my dad, "Hey, Dad, do you remember that stand mixer you got me for my birthday back then? Do you remember what color it was?" He replied, "Yeah, it was date red, like dried red dates, translated from our language." I freaked out and got immense goosebumps, and my mom was there at the time, and I was like, "Mom, even Dad remembers it was red. How? What happened?" We were all so confused and freaked out and didn't understand how we all vividly remember the mixer to be red, but suddenly the one we put into the bin all those years ago turned white. I asked my mom if there was any possibility of it being a different one, and she says she's never seen a white one before, that we put the red one into the bin together to store away. Okay, so we have something very unique here, where normally when an object changes, either shape or sizes or a different type of object entirely, instead of a blender it'd be a mixer for bread or something, or in this case when it changes color, it usually signifies a quantum immortality event where you're in a different universe that is, well, very different, or even slightly different sometimes. But in this case, all three of you, your mom, and your dad remember it being white. So what does that mean? Is it a triple quantum immortality event where all three of you went to a different... It is conceivable. There are events that could lead to that kind of death, where people have homes that are not properly insulated. There's a gas leak or something. I've seen videos of that where entire homes just boom. It's crazy. So that is conceivable. Maybe something like that happened to you in a different universe and your whole family poured it over here. So if that's the case, welcome. Otherwise, I guess it's a switcheroo on the object itself. But DOP and reappearance, very rarely does it ever reappear as a different object. I mean, you can have objects reset in time, so they repair themselves that way. But to be a different object entirely, that's very rare. Almost seems more likely to be the quantum immortality event. Case file number 3414, written by Technical Bath 9108. The Landlord's Secret. About 6 years ago, my wife and I moved into a house, where we lived for about 3 years. When I first went to meet with the landlord and see the house, the landlord's son was present. While I was talking to the landlord, at one point, the kid asked his dad, "Are you going to tell him about the ghost?" The landlord reacted like you would if your kid just said something goofy and pointless. I laughed and the conversation moved on. At the time, my wife and I both had 50-50 custody arrangements with our exes. A few weeks after we moved in, I was walking through the downstairs part of the house and saw a kid walking by upstairs. It took a second for me to realize that we didn't have our children that week. I went upstairs and looked around, but nothing was there. I dismissed it, but over the next few weeks, I continued to catch glimpses of him, during weeks when we did or did not have our kids with us. Now, I don't have any particular beliefs about the supernatural or ghosts, but I know what I saw, even if I can't explain it. It was a kid, maybe a year or two younger than ours, but with brown skin and dark hair, like our children. Finally, I asked my wife if she had seen anything unusual since we moved in. She immediately responded, "Did you see a kid?" I said, "Yes," and we compared notes. We had both been catching glimpses of what seemed to be the same kid. One night we both saw him, again upstairs, and I ran up the stairs into the room that he had walked into. Nothing there. We said nothing to anyone else about this. Frankly, we weren't worried that people would think we're crazy, so much as that people would just think we're full of crap. After we had lived there for about a year or so, my stepson didn't want to come back to our house from his dad's week. He eventually came back, though. His dad, we all got along really well, told us the reason, but asked us to not let our son know that he had told us, because he had promised that he wouldn't. He had told his dad that he woke up in the middle of the night while at our house, and that there had been a boy that he didn't know standing over him. His dad had eventually convinced him that it was just a nightmare, and that our house was safe. My wife and I continued to see our ghost, but just didn't think too much about it. It never seemed threatening, just a passing glimpse of someone who shouldn't be there. We eventually moved. Haven't seen him at all since we moved. This house and neighborhood had been built in the early 2000s. Prior to that, the whole area had been the country. If there had been a house in that location before, it seems unlikely, it would not have been part of a neighborhood or development. Now time for the jokes of the day. There is to be a British spin-off version of Stranger Things. It will be called Bit Odd, innit? Sure is a bit odd. How does a daddy electron watch his baby electron? By keeping an eye on him. After stealing all the punctuation marks off the judge's keyboard, I'm expecting a long sentence. My husband left me because I'm insecure. No, wait, he's back. He just went to get pizza. I accidentally sprayed Axe body spray into my mouth. I now talk with an accent. Video up here, YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you next time.